Everybody, Scoutcrafter here again. D-Day, 6th of June, 2018. What a great day, huh? And one of my subscribers, Abdullah Muhammad, had pointed out in one of my videos, he saw a hammer I was using to bang in some wedges of a hammer restoration. And he said, "What kind of hammer is that?" So I said, what a perfect day to do a demonstration on that hammer. It was a really crazy one. Let me show you what it's all about. Okay, this is the hammer in question. Now, I made this, I guess it's about 15 years ago, 10 years ago? I don't know. But let me tell you how I got to this point. I used to be into kind of working on metal lathe and things like that. I wanted to be a wannabe machinist, and all wannabe machinists tend to make their own hammers. Now, this hammer was one I bought at an auction, whatever. It was a few dollars, but some machinist, you could see the knurling on there, somebody made this hammer. It was something, it looks like he welded the top piece together, but did a nice job. It's a nice looking hammer. Here's another hammer I picked up at one of the steam engine shows or whatever. Another machinist made this. You could see the knurling on here and how that works in. And this is a, it's something we do, to practice your craft, more or less. So I used to do a lot of woodworking, like to make birdhouses, things like that. And my favorite hammer was this Sears. I think it's a 10 ounce, and it's a Vaughan makes it for Sears. What a beautiful, well-balanced hammer. This was always my favorite hammer. This was my go-to. I mean, this thing, when I'm driving brads into wood or whatever, this is just a beauty. I got a couple of these because I just love them so much. I think Vaughan, like I said, makes them for Sears. Now, when I used to work for a bus company, the MTA, and I used to work in the shop. And what happened was there was always these huge bolts, they were always using big bolts. And every once in a while, you'd find one, guys would, strip it out or whatever, and I'd pick it up or take it out of the metal bin that was in the garbage. And there was a big old lathe there. And I used to work midnights, so I had free range to run and play with the lathe. So I used to turn down them big old bolts and make, hammerheads, things like that, tools that I could use. This was like a little anvil I made, real quick on there. It didn't cost anything. And one time I decided I was going to make my own hammer, and a really nice one I wanted to make. And I found a bolt that was about twice the size of this, hardened bolt. And, these are real hardened. And I took it down and I used some, took it and tried to anneal it, which means you heat it up to red and you put it in some vermiculite, and this is the head here. And what I did was I went through some of the old hammers that I have, and I noticed that certain hammers, like here's an example of one. Now, if you look at this hammer, it has a slight, you could see when I turn it from one side to the other, it's not square with the handle. But this hammer was I always noticed that when I use this side, the one that's tilted down, it drives a lot better for me than if I use, obviously, this side. It's, exaggerated. So I said, man, I like that little downturn. Then I had another hammer that was off center. Instead of being in the direct center, it was off to one side. And I noticed that it works so much better when it's more towards me. So that angle being off center this way. And then I have another hammer that's weight, when the shaft isn't centered like this one, it's called weight forward, the way the Japanese make their hammers. And I said, boy, if I can incorporate all those three into a hammer, it would be great. So what I did was I dropped the front of the hammer about 3 degrees. If you look here, I off-centered it by about 3 degrees. Now I'm righty, so that means I off-center it to the right, so that brings the weight of the hammer to the left. And so with the added weight forward, and that's 3 things. So I tried that. So then it came time to making the handle. Now I always like this handle. I used to turn some pens, and this is just a beautiful. It's like an acetate, but I always like that the kind of burl look kind of design. So I said I want to make a handle that was custom for me. So what I did is I squeezed some paper towel, some wet paper towel in my hand hard, and it came up with this shape. And then I made this shape into a handle. And what I did was I would grip the handle, and then every time I felt a spot that didn't feel comfortable, I'd sand it down, grip it, sand it down, until this is my perfect, as strange as it looks crazy, right? But when you hold this in your hand, that fits perfect in my hand. So now we have all these you know, custom designed hammer particles to make this hammer. Let me show you how great. Now, I enjoy building birdhouses and things like that, and a lot of times using small nails, you know, very small nails. So you don't want a big hammer because you can easily bend them over. But this was always my go-to hammer, this one here, and I would choke up on it because it's just the way it feels, you know, the balance of the hammer. When I made this particular hammer here, first of all, I put cylindrical grooves in here, if you could see it, and so it won't slip. So there's little micro grooves in there, and I'll tell you something, it's just the perfect length where I usually choke up to. And when I use this hammer, it's no matter what I do, I never bend a nail over. It's perfect for me. And again, because when I'm holding the hammer, I tend to hit at this point, and that's where this little bend comes in. So I never bend a nail over no matter what I do. It's just a beautiful hammer. Let me show you how I made it. The construction was pretty straightforward. Once I had the angles right and drilled the hole, I tapped here, I tapped the handle, I put 1/4-inch rod through, epoxied everything with a piece of steel, chrome-plated steel tubing over the outside for appearance. I milled this down before I did everything, and to make it look good and take a little weight off the front. It just works out really good. It's a strange hammer. It only works in one direction. You know, this end never gets used because it's the opposite of what you would need, but I don't know, unusual hammer, but it really is my favorite hammer. You can't bend a nail over with this thing. I don't know. Really works well. All right, just a little quick one on this one for Abdullah, and I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you have a nice holiday today. Take care. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.